everyone, you're listening to Achieve Balance with Dr. Arminta, a show brought to you to help you be healthier, happier, and more vitalistic next year than you are this year. You can find us at achievebalancchiropractic.com/podcast. And you can find us on Facebook as well. We are looking forward to helping you be healthier in your future. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the show. Welcome back, everyone. It's Dr. Arminta with the Achieve Balance podcast. And today we are going to talk about a topic that is so vital for your overall health and your wellness. And it is such a joy when you get enough of it, but it can be such a struggle in your life if you are lacking it. And that is adequate sleep. So today we're going to talk about specifically the issues that we have in the United States when it comes to chronic sleep deprivation and what kind of health implications we're now finding out with some latest research of how sleep deprivation actually plays a role into some of the major big hitter sicknesses that people are experiencing at such a rapid rate in our society right now. And then most importantly, what I'd like to do is finish up our conversation today with some ways that you can set yourself up for success when it comes to your sleep, and how can you nurture your environment and your lifestyle around a healthy sleep cycle. And so first and foremost, let's talk about the problem at hand and how it plays such a big role into our overall health. So in the United States today, 1 in 3 Americans gets less than 7 hours of sleep per night. So that's 83 million adults in the United States are sleep deprived. That's crazy. So what happens when we get sleep deprived? There's a lot of crazy statistics that come around with this. So one of the stats that I found pretty alarming when it comes to our lack of sleep and our overall vitality is that drowsy driving is responsible for 1,550 fatalities and 40,000 non-fatal injuries annually just in the United States. So we are actually having more issues with drowsy driving than we are with drunk driving, and there's really no way to lawfully police this, and that's concerning. So how can we make sure we're taking our own responsibility and not having those moments of sleep at the wheel or just the nod off? Because the book that I just recently read, it was by Dr. Walker. It was called Why We Sleep. It's a fabulous book. I'll put a Amazon link in the show notes. But he talked about how if you get inadequate sleep, it's not falling asleep at the wheel. It's that 2 or 3 second nod that we do, and we've all experienced this as we drive. So, I really encourage everybody to pay attention. This is my public service announcement for the day. To not drive drowsy. It is a huge, huge factor. And so take the time to actually rest in between your long drives and things along those lines. But I wanted to talk about how much sleep do we need when it comes to being rested, and how much sleep we need to get. As in certain ages, we have different sleep requirements that we need. And so young infants, they're going to sleep the majority of the day. 12 to 16 hours is anywhere under the age of 1 year of age. So lots and lots of napping. We all experience this when we're taking care of our newborns and our infants, and it's needed because they're growing. It's the amount of the neurology that's growing at that time. Your body needs to be closed down so that you can focus the energy on the important stuff. And that's one of the amazing things of our body will force us into sleep when it needs to heal, which is really, really important. When we have youngsters in terms of 1 to 2 years of age, they need 11 to 14 hours of sleep, and that includes naps. Children between the ages of 3 to 5 years of age need in between 10 and 13 hours, including naps. 6 and 12 is 9 hours to 12 hours of sleep. Teenagers need anywhere from 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And another really interesting thing about this that was in that book is that our melatonin release, which is the main hormone that our brain releases whenever we need to sleep, so it allows us to get sleepy. And we're going to talk in depth about melatonin here in a minute. But they have a different time release than what we do. So adults usually will release serotonin around the 9 o'clock hour at night. And that's when we start to get sleepy. And that's when our innate circadian rhythm goes into effect. And that's when we need to go to sleep so that we can stay in balance with our normal rhythm that we all have. Well, teenagers' rhythms, they actually start at 11 p.m. So it is very, very common that our teenagers are not going to bed. They're staying up later than we are, and this is the reason why. But we really need to make sure that we are setting them up for success in terms of how they are able to sleep, because we have the electronic aspect and things along those lines. We're going to talk about how that affects our sleep here in just a few minutes, but that's about the amount of hours that we need, and that's why teenagers and adults are different. So, and lastly, which is the majority of our audience that is listening, the adults, they need 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. So an absolute minimum of 7 hours per sleep so that you can have, proper functionality of your overall body. So, what happens to our body when we don't get enough sleep and when we are having, chronic sleep deprivation? And our body really downregulates in the time when it's lacking sleep. So really a big phenomenon that we see is, one big thing is your sperm count lowers. So if you're having any issues with fertility problems or things along those lines, really, really make sure that you get enough sleep. And that's really, really an important thing to think about whenever, especially if you can do anything that you can naturally to help that process along. Some of the other things when we have, inadequate or chronic deprivation of sleep is that you increase your likelihood of getting cancer. So when you only get after just one night of only 4 to 5 hours of sleep, your natural killer cells, which are the ones that attack cancer cells in your body. So just a little side note on cancer is we all have cancer cells in our body. Is your immune system strong enough to not allow it to grow rapidly? So when we have a growth, it's because it's accelerated growth. And so these natural killer cells are our friends. They help encapsulate these, cells that are cancerous, and they kill them before they actually turn into cancer in our bodies. And so after one night of not getting adequate sleep to only getting about 4 to 5 hours, our natural killer cells drop by 70%. That's insane. And it is directly linked. A lack of sleep is actually directly linked to bowel, prostate, and breast cancer. So if anything, I'll do anything to put a barrier as big as I can between me and that C word, because it's one of those mysterious ones that we haven't really fully figured out as scientists, and it seems to be just growing and growing at an exponential rate in the United States. And so we need to do anything that we can. So sleep, get your Z's, a minimum of 7 to 9 hours. I'm going to say that over and over and over again as we talk today. So another one, a big one that I see and that we work a lot with in our office, because we're not only a chiropractic office, but we teach people how to eat better, move better, and think better. And so one of the things that we notice is that people that are having problems with sleep apnea and inadequate sleep, then they are actually having more problems with weight gain and an inability to lose weight. And the reason that happens is because there are 2 hormones that a sleep deprivation will affect, and that's ghrelin and leptin. So ghrelin is known as your hunger hormone. And when it rises, you get the signal that you need to eat more food. And so whenever you lack sleep, that's going to skyrocket, and it will make you feel hungry even though you're actually not. And then at the same token, you have this other, because there's always balance in the body. And so you have leptin, which is also referred to as the obesity hormone. And what it does is leptin is what triggers your brain to tell you that you're satisfied, that you're full. And so the leptin signal is decreased whenever you don't get enough sleep. And so when you're sleeping, your leptin levels are actually one of their highest. And so if you're not getting enough adequate sleep, they'll never get a chance to reset. And then that affects your overall metabolism and slowing down and signaling and constantly having that issue of feeling hungry. And so that's one of the things that we should pay attention to as well. So some of the biggest topics that I like to talk about when it comes to how sleep affects it and chiropractically related is the stress response and the effect on the brain and the immune system. So when you're lacking or you have chronic sleep deprivation, you actually increase your levels of stress hormones and cortisol and catecholamines. You increase your levels of inflammation, and inflammation is the precursor for so many different disease processes in the body, from heart disease to, cancer again, diabetes, obesity. Like, it's such an issue in terms of that. Not only that, but the autoimmune response as well. And in terms of the autoimmune response, when you have a decreased function in your overall sleep quality for an extended period of time, your overall immune system downregulates, not just your killer cells like we talked about earlier, but your overall immune system. And then how does it affect your brain? And this is a huge issue. So one of my big things and one of the bigger diseases that we're going to see skyrocket in the next decade is Alzheimer's and dementia. And sleep is so critical to the prevention of Alzheimer's and dementia because of how it affects the amyloid beta deposits within the brain. And so Alzheimer's is a disease where you lose the ability to form memory. And it's because you have these amyloid beta deposits that are naturally cleaned out, but when they get stuck, it actually kills the cells around it, or around those areas, and then it becomes this, vicious cycle that your brain starts to kind of eat at itself. And so when you sleep, you actually stimulate a system in the brain called the glymphatic system, glymphatic system. And this is a system that cleans those amyloid plaques. And it is what happens is when you get deep sleep, that system upregulates, and so that's when your brain actually gets cleaned. And so if you're not getting sleep, then you get more of those deposits, which actually stimulate your brain to not sleep more. So it becomes this negative feedback loop, and that can affect your overall memory. And so I know that, if you're listening to this and you're having, sleep issues, stay tuned, because we're going to talk about some solutions next. But if you're listening to this and you brush off sleep and you're one of those people that you're like, oh, I can just run on 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep a night and I'm just fine. I want you to really think about that, because you might not understand the implication at the present moment, but it might be later on down the road where you notice you're having your issues. And by that time, it can be too late. So take sleep very seriously and get your body to be able to get into its natural circadian rhythm. So when we were hunters and gatherers, back in our nomadal days, we slept with the sun cycle. This is one of the reasons that I absolutely cannot stand as a doctor the whole daylight savings time, because it really, really disrupts our overall sleep cycle twice per year. And I see a lot more illness, a lot more chronic pain that happens at that time because our circadian rhythms are off. And so one of the things that we can do to work on getting adequate sleep is to form a habit, to form a rhythm around it, to go to bed at the same time every single night, and to, wake up every single day at the same time as well. And this includes the weekend, until you really, really get a nice rhythm and a nice system around, sleeping on a consistent basis. I think that that's one of the really, really, really important things to understand, is that it has to be rhythmatized and it has to be consistent. So working on consistency is really a really key thing. So Couple of things that you can do in your environment though. So what can you do in your world to help? What are some strategies to help set yourself up for success when it comes to your sleep? One is to prepare your environment. So the bedroom is a place for sleep. Use the bed to sleep. And the other fun stuff that we get to do in our beds. But don't sit in your bed and watch TV. Use it for, resting moments. Also, make sure that your room is absolutely as dark as possible. Preferably pitch black if you possibly can. And if you can't do that, investigate wearing a sleep mask, because when you put all light out, what it does is it stimulates your brain to make more melatonin. And melatonin is the hormone that our brain makes to stimulate sleep. And a lot of times people talk about taking melatonin to stimulate sleep. I personally am not a fan of this. I think that when you tell your body that it doesn't have to make it by supplementing it, then you downregulate your body actually making it. And so when you take the supplement away, the problem's even bigger than it was beforehand. And so what can you do to stimulate your body's own production of it instead of taking an exogenous or an outside-in form of melatonin? And one of the ways that you can do this is that sleep response, or is the blackout response. And so anything that you can do to get the entire room as dark as possible so that you can get your brain to stimulate more melatonin release is really essential. Another thing that you can do is that you can sleep naked. So sleeping naked, what it does is it actually cools the surface of your skin by almost a full 1/10 of a degree. And so that can lead to sounder sleep. And it also can lead to your body releasing oxytocin, or your feel-good hormone, which is a relaxation hormone as well. When it comes to the temperature of your room, I want you to play with this, but definitely keep it under 70 degrees. So they say ideal 68. I personally do better at 70, I found over the years. So I think that it's important to really, and play with that, but never go over the 70 degree mark, because your body needs that low temperature in the room so it can have some balance with that. Also, keeping the edges of your sheets, so the bottom of your sheet, untucked, so that in the middle of the night you innately can get a foot outside of the covers, and that will decrease your core temperature and will help you stay asleep as well. Another thing when it comes to your environment of your bedroom when it is with sleep is to eliminate all electronics out of the room. So electronics have electromagnetic fields in them, and these can disrupt your pineal gland, which also is where your melatonin is released. And when it comes back to this melatonin has a direct reflection into how our bodies can either, metabolize or get rid of breast cancer cells. So it's really important to understand that whatever you can do to help stimulate this, not only the EMFs does it disrupt your pineal gland, but it also has excessive oxidative stress, which can cause premature aging and all sorts of issues. Plus, not to mention, if you have your phone there and it dings or it lights up, or you have those signals coming in, that's going to stimulate your brain, and you may be waking up from that as well. So making sure that it's very, very quiet, that's a very important thing as well. I would also encourage to not use, large or loud alarm clocks, like those stimulating when you do have to wake up, because that can be just too stimulating whenever you're trying to wake up, and it can create a stress response in the morning that's really unnecessary. So if you can get a lighter tone of an alarm clock, and ideally if you can get to the point where you get into a rhythm where your body is waking itself up naturally, that's a very, very sweet spot. Other things that you can do to help prepare your body to sleep or to prepare your bed to sleep is you can take magnesium before bed, and that helps relaxation components. Also, CBD oil. If you've never tried CBD oil, we did a podcast with Kristen Williams from Hemsley on CBD oil and the endocannabinoid system, and how that will help decrease pain, stimuli, muscle spasm, and it helps neural balance, which will help your ability to relax and fall asleep. And no, it is not this is not pot. It's not weed. So just, we need to have some breakdown of that conversation there. So also creating very much a routine around bedtime, not stimulating yourself with news, television, stimulating books, Facebook, anything that's coming in as a stimuli. You want to really work on down regulating, on really quieting yourself before bed. You can do some deep breathing exercises. You can do some visualization exercises. You can do meditation before bed. There are certain gentle yoga poses that you can do that will stimulate mass relaxation along the body, which will also help you go to bed. But finding a relaxing routine instead of the go, hurry, rush, so we can do it all over again tomorrow kind of thing, is we got to stop it. We got to take the time to really exhale and slow down so that we can have some, proper relaxation into bed. Another one is watching your nutrition, because that can definitely affect how you sleep. So eating sugary or high processed carbohydrate food before bed will increase or ramp up your glycemic index, which will also cause you to have more sugar output, which will basically it's a stimuli, if you would. So it can harm your ability to be able to sleep properly or to be able to get into that restful state as well. Also, avoiding caffeine after noontime, after 12 p.m. Yes, I'm saying avoid caffeine for the last half of the day is very, very important. And then another really big myth that a lot of people out there have is, I'll have my nightcap, before bed. So a glass of wine or a beer before you go to bed to, down tempo, or relax, if you would. It might feel that you're relaxed, but what it actually does is it's a stimulant. It's going to stimulate your brain just like caffeine would, and just like any other form of electronic device as well. So we need to down stimulate your brain and really get into a restful state by changing your brain waves. So you can, doing the deep breathing exercises and the focused exercises are really, really an important solution that you can have to be able to get those 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. So last thing I wanted to talk about, though, and when it comes to our overall sleep response and what I get to do every day in terms of chiropractic care, is that if your spine is subluxated, if you have a subluxation along your spine, it puts your body into a state of stress, which is going to be in that fight or flight response, which is going to decrease your ability to be able to fall asleep appropriately. Also, the curve in your neck, and for those who don't know it, you're supposed to have a natural, normal forward arc in your neck. That forward curve in the neck, if you look at the neck from a side view on an x-ray, is vital. It allows the nerve transmission to go from your brain down the spinal cord at the appropriate speed, but it also allows for the cerebral spinal fluid to properly pump around your brain and your spinal cord, also known as, when we talked about that, glymphatic response system. So it's what cleans your brain. And so getting adjusted not only will help you sleep better, but it'll help keep your brain healthy. And so it's very, very vital to get your spine checked and to make sure that that curve in your neck is there, so your body can be in a state of relaxation, so that your cerebral spinal fluid can pump and that system in your brain can clean out the amyloid beta plaques that cause the problems with the dementia and the Alzheimer's. And most importantly, you need to get adjusted, because it allows you to express full potential over your nervous system so you can adapt appropriately to your environment so that you can be healthy and whole. And so I'm glad you joined us today on our conversation. I'm really looking forward to teaching more and learning more as we go. So join us again on our next episode, and here's to you getting some good quality sleep tonight. Hi guys, Dr. Arminta here. Thank you so much for listening. I hope today's episode brought you information to help you eat better, move better, think better, and take care of the true root of your health issues. You can find us online at achievebalancechiropractic.com/podcasts, and you can find us on social media as well. We look forward to having you here the next episode, and we look forward to helping you create a healthier future tomorrow.